We back in the lab, we making some noise, so go turn your decibels up. Black skin, white coat, oh no, who was nice as us? Made Jimison, really told us no limit, so we about to take this up. Went from mixing in the kitchen to the lab, and now I can make this up. Whoa! B-SCI, be scientist, B-SCI, be scientist. We shining a light on the people of color to show them how fly it is. B-SCI, be scientist, B-SCI, be scientist. We back in the lab with white coats on our back, trying to show what time it is. Hey!
And welcome back to the B-Scientist Podcast, a podcast by the Black Science Coalition Institute, or B-SCI. When you hear this noise, that is our in-podcast citation, so please check it out on b-sci.org/B-Scientist, where you can see all of our citations ever. I am geoarchaeologist Jordan Chapman, and as always, we have the dope chemist herself,
Jana Carpenter.
And today, we have a special guest. We got Dr. Gertrude Nonterah. I hope I got that right. I'm so sorry if I did not.
Yes. You did. Yes, it's Nonterah. You're doing great.
Appreciate it. So, Dr. Nonterah, you, I had, my first question is, I saw that you got your PhD at Temple. So I'm just wondering how you got to good old Philadelphia, because that's actually where I'm from.
Oh, okay. So great question. So this rewinds the clock way back to 2008. I was at the time I was an international student. I'm originally from Ghana in West Africa, and I had come to the US as an international student to attend college. Well, one of the things that international students face is having to continually be in school or leave the country, So at the time, I knew I wanted to go get my PhD, and I was kind of running out of time on my visa. So I just started applying everywhere. And the school that did give me a chance to get to start my PhD program was Temple University. So that's how I ended up there, and loved Philly so much. That's why I met my husband. That's why I had my firstborn. Got my PhD. So many good memories are tied to Philly. I live in California now, but yeah, that's how I ended up in Philly.
Is your husband from Philly?
No, he had lived there for almost a decade before I met him. So he considers himself a Philadelphian.
Hey, be out there. So I'm also wondering, so that's that, but also, like, obviously you're a scientist, and that's obviously a career path that requires a lot of different things to go. I don't want to say right, but it requires a lot of moving pieces. So how did you become a scientist?
Mm-hmm. So my program, my undergrad, I was a biology major, and later I would get a nursing degree as well. But then my PhD was in microbiology and immunology. And so the way I became a scientist is that my whole life I've been, I've sort of been kind of in that space of being a biologist and being in a scientific space and being a STEM major. So I knew that somehow science is going to play a major role in my career. And of course, as PhD programs go, with the specific PhD program I went to, it was very research focused, as many other PhD students or even master students on this podcast may know. You have your first few, maybe 2 years of didactic courses, and then the rest of the time you are focused on research. I really do believe in the power of having good mentors when you are a budding scientist, and I had a good department. I was part of a really good department. I had a really great advisor. She was a young advisor at the time, and she, as young advisors, young faculty, they need to publish, they need to establish themselves in the community. And so it was a great place for me to be, because she was just getting started. I saw the other side of things, where people that had older PIs who had already obtained tenure sometimes struggle to publish, because those people had tenure and it was just like, you're kind of on your own, figure it out. And they were there to advise, but there was no real push to publish. But I'm so grateful that I was in a place where and she still is really keen on publishing every single year, publishing papers. And so that really guided my research to put my work out there. So I would say that that's how I became a scientist. But yeah, my major was biology. I was in nursing. So it kind of it just flowed. I don't know if that answers your question.
I thought that was a really great answer. And I was kind of curious to know when you kind of found your voice or knew for sure how to continue in academia. Because I think a lot of the times, at least for me, I knew going into STEM that this is something that I really enjoyed, but I didn't really quite like find myself or my voice or feel confident even now in my PhD program. And so I just wanted to see if, how that maybe affected you or didn't affect you in any way.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Jana, and I think it takes time. And so maybe for somebody listening that's like, I haven't found my voice yet. I don't know where I fit in this whole academic ecosystem. I don't even know if I should continue in academia after my PhD or after my master's. I will say it takes some time to find your voice. One thing that I wish somebody had told me when I was in grad school is to be open to different experiences. So some people absolutely know that research is what they want to do and research is all they want to do. And that's great if you know that. And I remember when I was in grad school, there was a professor who had come to give a talk and we had lunch with him afterward. And I remember asking him, how did you decide to be the researcher that you are? And he said, because when I assessed myself, I wasn't good at anything else. Research was the only thing I was good at. That's why I became a researcher. And so for him, he kind of self-introspected and found that research was the best that he could do. So that's what he would stick to. And so then it becomes a real difficulty if you're like me and you're multi-passionate or you're multi-potentialite, where you're good at a whole lot of things and you don't really know where it is that you should settle. So this is where I say that explore different things. And whilst you're in grad school is the perfect place as a scientist for you to begin to explore not just your research. And I know we don't, as graduate students, we don't always have all the time, but it's a good place to explore. For instance, I'm a medical writer right now, and that's what I do as my full-time profession. Okay. But how did I stumble on that as a career path? Well, I have always enjoyed writing and I began to blog somewhere in 2014, 2013, 2014. I enjoyed that so much that I began to sell my skills essentially and began to freelance write. And I wasn't even writing in the scientific space. I was writing personal finance blogs, how to save on the best credit cards, like things like that. And I was getting paid money. And I was like, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy going to research things, coming back, distilling that information down and educating somebody. That I enjoy that. I also realized that I really enjoyed talking to people and presenting things to people, right? I really enjoy that. So you have to begin to self-introspect and see which aspects of what I'm doing do I enjoy. And as you know, in academia, we write so much. What of these do I enjoy? And so even I remember when I wrote my dissertation, one of my the people on my committee was like, wow, you're such a great writer. So like you have to listen to what people are telling you. You have to see what you enjoy. And then at a point, it is important for you to decide, because I realized very quickly I enjoyed the activity of doing research. I enjoyed my experiments, my mouse experiments, collecting the data, interpreting the data. But at some point towards the end of my PhD, or maybe in the middle of it, I realized, but this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't want to sit down and have to write grants for research. I don't want to do that, but I would love to write I would like to write educational material. I'd like to write marketing material. I'd like to do that. And so I began to hone my skills that way. So I think that the decision to whether or not to stay in academia, which is, universities and colleges as a researcher or as a professor or whatever, or the decision to step out. And here's the thing I want to plug in here is that so many of us people who are scientists forget that there are places outside of the ivory tower where our skills and our knowledge is appreciated and helpful and useful. If you want to stay in academia, that's excellent, and I applaud you. But there are opportunities for us also outside of the academy. So that's what I'd have to say. And one thing I also wish I had done was even do a little bit of informational interviewing, finding people in professions that intrigued me and just chatting with them. That I wish that's something I would have done.
Honestly, I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I've noticed recently with talking with a few people that I think people don't realize that research is the end all be all with these degrees, and I think it's good to speak on these things because it's definitely not something that my department talks about. Like, oh, what do you do if you don't go into academia? What happens then? You know, it's kind of this closed door conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
I agree too. I mean, even in anthropology and geology, it's also it's very much. I mean, not so much geology, but it is there. That if it's always like a one or two career paths. It's like, you know, if you're not academia, then it's like this one specific thing. In anthropology or specifically archaeology, just like if it's not academia, you're going to do like cultural resource management. In geology, it's kind of like if it's not academia, you might do like you might go work for like a oil and gas company or something like that. And even when you think about the district, like the PhD process, it's like I was thinking about this the other day. That's usually like, I don't know a program where it's not about if you get chapters done or papers done, and that is your dissertation. It's never. And I don't even know what that would look like if it's not one of those things. So I agree that we should definitely have this conversation where we start thinking about what it looks like outside of academia and things like that. But I also know you're about to say something.
Oh, no, no, no. I was agreeing. I was agreeing with you absolutely that it doesn't get talked about much. And I don't blame the faculty in these programs because they also don't
Hmm.
know, right? Because their whole life is in the academy. So they may not even know people that work outside of the academies, you know. So this is one of the reasons, and maybe this is a good place for me to cite my YouTube channel, The
Hmm.
Bold PhD. And this is where, you know, I'm beginning this year, especially in 2022, I've been talking to people who have taken their degrees, their PhDs, and translated that into something else. And, you know, I think that that's a good place that may be a good place for somebody to even start looking that what else can I do?
Hmm.
You know, there are people that have turned their PhDs into biotech companies, or people that have turned their PhDs into educational technology companies, or they went to work for one and stuff like that. So, um, just wanted to chip that in.
Yeah, no, for sure. I actually wanted to get into that a little bit because this is a bit tangential, but we'll come back to it. I know that there is a YouTube channel called Kurska Scott, which I've talked about so many times on this podcast. But the dude who started that, I think he's in Europe somewhere, but I know he got his PhD and then started that channel, and he's turned it into one of the most successful YouTube channels for science communication. It regularly does a video could easily get 1 million views. It's honestly kind of crazy. It's like Crash Course and then Curse to Scott's, honestly, and they're very much are inspired by each other at times. So that gets back to this conversation, which is, how do you decide to take like your blog to writing skills to the YouTube sphere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a creative person, and I think you both of you are too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this
Mhm.
podcast,
Jana's
right?
pretty
So if
good
you
at it, yeah.
find an aspect of yourself, yeah, if you know, if you find an aspect of yourself that enjoys creativity, I think you should explore that as a scientist, because we don't get a lot. You know, this pandemic has highlighted the need for more scientists to talk about their work, right? Because there's so many people that need to understand, right? All of a sudden, now people can explain PCR to me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, you go. Because so many scientists and medical and people in the scientific and medical world explain what PCR tests are, or antigen tests, or all these things. So now people are very well educated. And I think that we're moving out of that era where knowledge was just for a certain group of people, right? And now knowledge is democratized. And I think that's such a great thing. So when you realize that you are a creative, I don't think you should hide that. I think you should put it out there. And it could be in the form of art, it could be in the form of music, it could be a talk show like this one, it could be a YouTube channel. You talk. Kes Kazaa. I know I've heard about him because one of my colleagues is a big fan of that channel and bought
Oh
the book
yeah.
they recently released, right? Yeah, so that's great. And when I went and checked it out, I'm like, oh, I think he was
hmm
an immunologist, and so his whole book, and my degree was in microbiology immunology. So I'm like, oh, we have something on. I have to find time to watch his
hmm
channel. I haven't done that, but it's great that he been able to turn something that was typically complex, right, into something that millions of people want
hmm
to watch. And I bet it probably skyrocketed during the pandemic. I don't know how his trajectory has
hmm
gone.
He's been a while for
Go ahead, Jordan.
no, I was gonna say because I love this channel. So if you got time to talk about it, we can talk about it all day. But one of the things that is really nice, and I think you even talked about, is like the way they distill information, because they've been a YouTube channel for a pretty long time. They were like, I don't want to say they were like one of the original science communication channels, but they just been around for a while. And the thing is that
Mm-hmm.
they have really nice graphics. It's a wide range of topics that like they've not into like recently did they really get into like the pandemic stuff, or like at least like, you know, talking about T cells and like different parts of the immune system, but it was necessary. But before then they would just talk about random things like,
Mm-hmm.
what if we what is the debate between like milk and, is it milk healthy? Like, is meat healthy? They would do kind of like they would do YouTube channel like videos about stuff like that, which were really good. But
Mm.
I think it goes back to like being creative and still taking this like complex different. But they also get to like they've done plenty of videos about how they try to distill information, which is really nice too. But that's just me going off on a tangent. I don't mean to cut you off. I just really
Exactly.
love that channel.
Yeah, no, it's not a tangent. I think it's great. Because you see what they have done is also create a career for themselves. That's another thing, is that
Mm-hmm.
they've created this whole scientific communications career for themselves. And I think about other channels like the Amoeba Sisters. And when I used to be a professor at a community college, I would refer my students to watch the Amoeba Sisters all the time, because the Amoeba Sisters take complex biological concepts and make it easy so that somebody that never took a biology class could at least come away with some bit of information. But they've created a whole career for themselves out of being science educators, science communicators. And so if you find that you also have, not everybody has that, right? Not everybody is as entertaining as Kes Kazat or Amoeba Sisters, right? But even if you think there's something that you care about, that you want to talk about, right? And I cared about careers, PhD careers so much, because there was so much I didn't know when I went into the job market, so much frustration. And I was like, no, other people don't have to go through that. So there may be an aspect, not maybe even science, but there may be an aspect within what you're doing, right? Let's say writing. I know somebody that has built a whole YouTube channel around dissertation writing. I'm like, how do you even find the content for that? But they do. you know they do. So you may find something that really gets under your skin, and you're like, I'm going to talk about this, and that ends up helping so many more people than you realize. So, and you end up creating a totally different career path for yourself. So I think it's great that you brought it up, Jordan.
Yeah, I guess going further into that, would you mind discussing some of the content that you've created and the books that you have that you want to speak about, specifically to this creativity
Yes,
and
thank you so much.
tools for people?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So, like I said earlier, I'm the host of the Bold PhD channel. And on the Bold PhD channel, I talk about PhD careers, and especially non-academic PhD careers, because according to I think there's a statistic on either NIH. I have to find the source, but I will send it so that we can add that citation in here. That only 17% of graduating PhDs will land a tenured faculty position. Okay, 17%. That's less than 1 out of 5. Okay, so when you graduate with 10 people, maybe 2 of those people are going to become tenured faculty, because that's all that's available currently. Yes, you could get a faculty position, but it's likely it's not going to be tenured. It's going to be contract, or it's going to be adjunct. Okay, and that kind of instability in careers is not good enough for me. So one of the things that I began to do was really talk about one of the videos on that channel that has done, I've gotten quite a bit of commentary on, is one I did on the reality of being an adjunct professor. And it sounds very respectable. It sounds very, like, oh, I'm a professor. But there are adjunct professors that are living below the poverty line. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with a PhD who is very highly trained, highly intelligent, living below the poverty line. I know, and this conversation has come up sometimes where people say, but a PhD is not about making money. And I'm like, yes, I get it. We love knowledge, but we still have to pay bills. We still have to go to the hospital. We still have to take care of children. You can't say that getting a PhD is not about money. Yes, ultimately, I would not, if you're just going to get a PhD or get a master's degree just because of the money, I would dissuade you from doing that. But we should get paid well because we have specialized skills that contribute to the innovations of the world. Okay. So out of that, so you can tell I'm quite passionate about that. But out of that passion, I started creating this channel to educate people on. And even just this week, I had somebody that emailed me, sent me a LinkedIn message and said, hey, I don't think I want to be in academia anymore. They have their PhD. What else is out there for me? They didn't even know what else is out there for them. And they've been through a PhD program for 5 or 6 years. That's completely sad to me, especially knowing that there is a statistic out there that says only 17% of us are going to be tenured faculty. So out of that frustration, I started the Bold PhD to talk about some of these things and to talk about personal branding and how to differentiate yourself so that you can begin to enter, and how to even think differently so that you enter the non-academic career markets. Now, somebody had pointed out something the other day that I thought was so crucial, and I want to insert it here. The way you position yourself for a faculty career or for an academic career is completely different from how you position yourself for a non-academic career. It's not the same thing. You don't even use the same kind of resume. So in
Right.
academia, we use CVs and it's very performance-based, right? We're very performance-based in academia. We want to see your publications. We want to see where you've talked. We want to see all these accomplishments, right? Your grants. It's very performance-based in academia. In the non-academic world, it's less performance-based. It's about your skills. Right. So if you start putting out a CV, and that was a mistake I made, if you start putting out a CV that has all your publications and all your talks and doesn't highlight any skills, it's just going to go into the waste bin. You're just going to push it aside. But if on your resume, you whittle that down, and I say, hey, whittle it down to about 1 page, but highlight the skills that you bring from academia. When you're a PhD, you project managed all throughout your PhD, right? You have problem solving skills, you have writing skills, you have communication skills, because you have to come up with you have to collect data and come up with a story and tell that story. You have storytelling skills, right? So tell us about your skills. It's not about your performance in industry or in the non-academic world. So even that was like a revelation to so many people that what's like the documents are not I'm like, nope, not the same. So it's stuff like that, and that's what I built the Bold PhD around, is really showing people that there are careers outside of the academy that also pay very, very well, and that becoming a tenured professor, if you don't become one, I hope you don't become completely crushed, but realize that there are opportunities for you out there.
I think those are all really good points. I mean, just to go back, it is crazy how if you get into a master's program or a PhD program, like how tailored it is to like pipeline people to look for those academic careers and tenure track positions. And I don't know how many times I've been at a job talk or talk to an advisor in a different department, and they say, "Oh, well, we know that we're not expecting people to get tenure track positions, but the rate at which these faculty members at big universities try to make that better is like ridiculously slow, because I have not seen a big effort for academic for professors to just go like, okay, we'll try to make more well-rounded students. So I think you're really speaking to just how niche, and like you said, the ivory tower is just it is just a bubble at times. So I think those are really good points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jenna.
And I was just going to go off of that and say that I recently tried to have a roundtable discussion, right, with my department, because oftentimes these like conversations just don't happen and aren't really encouraged, at least. But we had this roundtable discussion with faculty members, and when the topic came up, it was just kind of like, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. It'll come to you. And it's like, well, that's not really good enough for me. Like,
No.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because it doesn't really just come easily for everyone. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, but you bring up such a great point, because most people, I mean, I'm not saying that people who don't go into masters and PhDs are not intelligent people, but most of the time, if you're in a master's program or a PhD program, you are an intelligent person, right? And so because of that, sometimes people assume that you should be able to figure it out. You're an intelligent person, but my argument against that is, yeah, we're intelligent people, but we're really smart at what we do in the lab, or we're really smart at what we do in our fields, and that doesn't always translate, for instance, into social skills. That doesn't always translate into understanding how your skills even fit outside of what you're doing currently. So saying that, and that's my pet peeve is like, if you say we'll figure it out, yeah, well, eventually some of us do figure it out. But if nobody has ever told you something, it's very difficult to actually just come across it on your own. It's really, really difficult to come across something on your own that you don't even have a clue exists. So saying you will figure it out on your own, that's ridiculous.
100% agree. I've been having some problems in my program, and the one thing I just keep going back to is that I can only ever be maybe I'll be a master's student. I'm actually applying to PhD programs right now, but I can only do those things once. Like, I will only ever be like a grad student like one time in my life. However, if you are a faculty advisor or a mentor, then the expectation is that you've dealt with the system so many times that you have the now skills to mentor and help me get to a point where that should not be a problem. Where if I come to you with a question that you should have at least a satisfying answer or a satisfying resource that helps me get to the answer. It shouldn't be you have to figure it out for yourself, especially if it's like there are things that are just like so trivial where it's like, oh, like how do I do this in the graduate school? You work at this institution, you should probably know that. Like, to me, that is a mind-boggling thing that I've dealt with many people in academia who just don't know they're even the system they're in, and it is crazy.
Yeah, and in listening to you say that, Jordan, if somebody comes to ask me a question, now that's knowledge. Like, I'm like, oh, they have a question about this. Let me go find out so I can help them, right? Let me go find out, because back when I didn't know that there were even careers outside of academia, I was just like, am I stuck in this forever? Because I don't want to do this. And what did I do? I went, of course, there's Google now, so you could go to Google and search for things and find out. But I really do think that this is why, again, I cherish what I'm doing so much, because it helps. I have faculty people who are in faculty positions that follow and have invited me to speak and stuff like that, and I'm really excited about that, and I'm beginning to see this whole career conversation change at some of the universities. But there's also still a lot of the figure it out for yourselves kind of thing. But if somebody, this is where it's important. If somebody asks me a question, now that question is knowledge. And the way that question is knowledge is now I have a basis with which to gain that knowledge. And sometimes the problem I find is that in academia, like, because people who have tenure faculty positions do not care about what's outside of academia. And they're like, why should I find out about that for you? And that can be problematic, definitely. But yeah, totally. If you don't tell somebody about something, they're not gonna know. It's, we can't just put it on graduate students to always try to find everything themselves. It's, we're paying so much money to be in academic institutions. There should be some help there,
Right. Especially if, like, I mean, we've kind of alluded to it already, but like the pay difference between like someone who has a tenure track position at a major university versus like a grad student at a major university is not anywhere in the same ballpark. So
No.
if that's the case, then like you have to understand that I'm trying to deal with being poor, being a grad student, and all the other responsibilities that are just like inherent in life. Never mind like say like B-SCI people who are like helping with B-SCI, but like there are just so many other responsibilities that we are taking on as graduate students. And you have a tenure track position, and that's not a bad job. Like you almost can't even get fired in some cases. Like it's you should be more willing to help out with these students, but it just does not translate into that, and it is very, very frustrating at times.
Not always. Yeah, I think this is the solution that some programs are building into their universities or programs, is having a career, an office that is dedicated to career development. But even then, like when I was in grad school, I cannot remember a single event where we were called and like, okay, today we're going to have somebody from medical writing talk to us, or today we're going to have somebody from the pharmaceutical industry talk to us. Like we never had that, and I would like to see that change. Even if not the tenured faculty doing it, having very, very active career development departments that make this a focus and make this available to you should be able to, if the PhD students choose then not to attend because they just choose not to attend, you did your job, but it should still be offered. And I think universities really need to take that into consideration, especially for masters and graduate students, because yes, we're very smart, we're very intelligent, but this stuff, like you're trying to like create completely new knowledge in your field. From scratch. It's hard. It's difficult. And some of that help I wish would be given to graduate students.
I really appreciate those answers. And I know we're coming up towards the end of our time with you, which makes me so sad because you have such a wealth of knowledge. And
oh, no.
Right.
But I'm so glad that, at the end, we'll definitely be able to plug your social media and other outreach plugins that you have. But before we get to that,
yes.
And usually Jordan says his part, but I guess I'm co-opting today.
It's both of our show. You got it.
Yeah. So I usually towards the end of our interviews, we like to ask, in what ways do you think you inspire other people to be scientists in your own way?
Yes, I think just by showing up, I inspire people to be scientists. And what do I mean? I think over the last few years, there's been an emphasis on the fact that representation matters, right? And when a child, especially young people, when you see yourself, so I'll tell you a quick story to answer this question, and then I'll wrap it up. But I remember when I was a young child, again, I grew up in Ghana in West Africa, and I remember that one of the highlights of my childhood was seeing a lady. She was a female physician, and it was the medical school graduation. I still remember her name. Her name was Dr. Elsie Mensah, and she had finished her medical school, and she had won all the best student awards at the medical graduation. And it was news all over the country because for the first time, a female student had won all of these awards. Like sometimes the female students would win some, but not all of them. So she was just overall a great student and had won all these awards after at her medical school graduation. And I remember saying that I want to be like her. I want to be Dr. Gertrude, I was upon at the time, now I'm Nonterah, but I want to be Dr. Gertrude, right? So I remember seeing that and thinking, that's possible for me. So when somebody, and I've had people say this to me, oh, it's so nice to see another Black face in STEM, in science, or in medical writing. I never met a Black medical writer, right? It's so nice to see that. And it's really nice to see that you're talking about it. Like, you are it and you're talking about it. Thank you for that, because now this inspires me to explore this path. So I think that the way that I inspire, I don't know if I inspire people, but I think that the way that I inspire people is simply by showing up and being creative. And this is why we need more, like Black Kazats, maybe. Maybe Jordan does that. This is why we need more of that, because we're there. We're there, right? But how are people going to know if they don't see us? There's so many. I have a friend, an acquaintance, not a friend, but an acquaintance, a good acquaintance, who is a professor. She's also from Ghana. She's a professor of organic chemistry at a university in Ohio, which, chemistry is always like the subject everybody's afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely I was of OChem, and she told me the attrition rate for so many minority students in her classes, that so many minority students come into her class and drop her classes because they're so scared that they will fail. And some of them just drop out of the STEM major altogether. And most of the time, it's minority students, it's Black students, right? Not just Black students, but general minority, but a lot of Black students do this. And why is that? Why is that though? Because maybe they haven't seen enough people who are in STEM fields and say and who have been through it, and who can say to them, hey, if I did it, you can do it too. I also struggled with OChem, but here's how you can study it and be better. And here's how you can pass the course. So by showing up, by being creative, by sharing your gift with the world, you can inspire people. And hopefully, as I do the Bold PhD, I can inspire more people.
That was a great answer. I just by showing up, I mean, that honestly, I do feel like it's that simple. Just show up and be scientists, and we can change the world. Honestly, that's what I truly believe. But Jana, I don't know if you have any follow-up questions. If you do.
Oh, yeah. If you just want to plug all of your social media, that would be great, because I'm sure people will want to follow up.
Yeah. Well, this was really great. I want to thank you, Jordan. I want to thank you, Jana, for reaching out and having me on your podcast. It's such a privilege to have been here. So if anybody wants to find me, I'm at theboldphd.com. That's the website. And you can also Google or look for The Bold PhD on YouTube. I'm there. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn. So Gertrude Nonterah, PhD, RN, you'll find me there as well. I'm also on Instagram at The Bold PhD.
Cool. Well, it's been great talking to the both of you, and we'll catch you in like 2 weeks. And until then, just keep being scientists. B-Scientist is a podcast by the Black Science Coalition and Institute, or B-SCI, a 501c3 nonprofit. B-Scientist is hosted by both Jana Carpenter, chemist and B-SCI's Research and Development Officer, and Jordan Chapman, geoarchaeologist and B-SCI's president. Music is produced by Delaralo, and lyrics are by Adjunct. Special thanks to Michael, Mike, Captain Marshall, and the Plaza Abbey Studios. If you'd like to donate to B-SCI, visit our official website, bsci.org. That's b-sci.org. Your donation supports B-Scientist and B-SCI's other projects. We couldn't do it without you. So please tune in next time, and always be scientists.